For Those That Wish to Exist by Architects. Y'all know my first exposure. Holy hell. Turns out, from what I've been hearing through some other sources, without having listened to this record, which I need to go back, despite my feelings being like most in saying that it's technically not as much of a progressive metalcore record this time around, and in the moment the first single we had, Animals, made it clear that there are moments in it, but it's only sporadic, and it seems the way the singles were super huge that made this album bigger than it needed was, and it just may not have lived up as much to it. But to say it's... But for people like Metal Meltdown to say it's bad, for them to say it's bad, no, this record isn't bad by that means. No, because it has good, because the lyricism's pretty good for the most part, and so is. And let's face it, my first exposure being with this band, of course, having been their supposed comeback since their death of their guitarist Tom. And the brother and this is the first album without having Tom himself having any form of writing credit, whether it be posthumous or not. Posthumous or not, I mean, is what I meant to say. And I think the other brother wound up taking full duties. This one being more expansive to the rest of the world. I do agree in some sense and instances with Metal Meltdown, in the sense that, it's not an innovative record, and yes, in terms of its sound, and they're not really bringing anything new that the other bands, and it's not fair to compare them to Bring Me Horizon, but it's understandable if you do with the comparisons thrown, even especially given the recent album, what they did, and recent EP that Bring Me Horizon did last year, which I decided to make my first exposure with them anyway, and I realized how the way they go about their nihilism is a bit too forward, and I guess I don't care for it being that unfortunately in your face forward, and I appreciate them for it, but that's not what happened here with Architects, and I think because of it, and the fact that they didn't do as bold of an ideas, especially in features, in comparison to like having Baby Metal of all things, does sort of, I guess that's because of that it hurts this record a little bit. But the thing that hurts some of it from being possibly better, because Holy Hell was a grower of a record for me. Maybe not as much musically, but I just, for what it was, I needed to. And as being a farewell and send-off to and a true capping of an end of an era and a transitionary period for the band musically, it was a tough thing to do, and they pulled it off for what they did. They did to have had to have been able to follow up All Gods Have Abandoned Us, from what I've been told at least. Which, that record had a hard enough time in and of itself, from what I heard, following up their album Lost Forever, Lost Together. I've yet to hear these albums, but I have the feeling from, even after having listened to this record, I have a feeling I need to hear these other albums, because the way this reception is become polarizing to an extent that some people felt but polarizing isn't something that this band is unfamiliar with, because of the fact of what had happened with them on their last, with the album here, their album supposedly Here and Now. Or at least that's what I've heard through some other sources I've went to. As for me, I don't find myself not coming back to this. At least I would say from what I've listened to thus far, I'd say which isn't much at the moment, but we'll be getting some more later. I wanted to make sure this one is separate of its own, just to give some of the fans something to chew off of instead of waiting and putting it in for like a swim, or I don't even know if I'm going to start calling them swims anymore, guys. I may just call it a normal ketchup. I wanted to be cool about it, but I don't think it's going to, given my way of doing things, I think it's going to be a bit for that. So, yeah, the album cover's pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. At the very least, there's that going for it, at least. And it's still in theme of their certain sense of nihilism and the members' atheism. But the thing that I like about this, and so you know, I'm wearing, if you're wondering why I'm wearing this, yes, it's Thrice. The band has said that. That's kind of why, so I thought it was relevant. So just to let y'all know. And there are moments about it, more so in Sam Carter's vocals, and at certain points in certain tracks. To me, the singles, except for Meteor, the only purpose Meteor had was really because of a line in and out. And I'm sorry for the lighting, guys. You know, it's a bit much. So I may move this a little bit just so you don't have to deal with it. There you go. I still do, but it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Or at least that's how this album's supposed to feel. I'm not feeling it as much. Of course, if you're going to do something like this, it's going to, in a year where we're trying to be more positive than what was the negativity that is 2020. Yeah. Good, especially given one of those albums that was able to handle it and try to bring some sense of optimism in it. There's not really a whole lot of that in here. I know it makes it sound like I'm negative, but to be fairly honest, I liked this record. It may not sound like it, and plus, I liked some of the ideas of this record, and the singles that we had going into this were pretty good. I didn't mind the opener. The closer's fine. I feel like the closer was an attempt at doing what they were trying to do the last one, or at least doing a better job, I guess, of dealing with a more orchestral thing like they did with that one. And this one, they had done ones that felt more anthemic. Meteor doesn't work as well. I feel like what Meteor was doing, songs like Giving Blood did a better job with it. And the front half did a better job. I didn't mind it. Winston McCall wasn't bad with the line he was given. Was given on the record. A lot of these albums I really do like for what they do. For a lot of this album is mostly dealing with this post-apocalyptic thing, and they also mentioned the quarantine thing in Meteor, which is the only reason why they did that's because of relevancy purposes. But I feel like Giving Blood does a better job of what they were doing with that sound that they had, and some heavier moments they did have on this record. Like your inordinary, like, Disclosure is dead. Black Lunds. Discourse is dead. Goliath had some good moments, which, by the way, the feature game, for the most part, is pretty solid, or at least kind of wound up turning out better than what Lamb of God was trying to do with theirs, but their record, but I don't know why, since they're also considered metalcore, I guess, but they're more in the punk lenient thing than where this band is just definitely your more rock lenient style of metalcore, lean in that melodic metalcore type of sensibility, while still flirting with some of the more gentler progressive metalcore tendencies they had in their past 3 records, but only like very little. I feel in a way this album, despite the comparisons of Bring Me Horizon, could be a good thing for the band in the sense of getting more people interested, because especially the people that I used to know in my old band that were more into like groups like I Prevail, they might have a chance because they're probably going to hear some similarities in that regard. They probably may not like it as much within its lyricism, I guess that might be the only thing, but that's the thing about this band and how Bring Me the Horizon has been. So to me, I really do like this record. I do like what this record does, but I don't feel like coming back to it or at least it growing with repeated listens in the way that the Holy Hell did, and maybe some past releases once I get a chance to listen to them. So, but overall, I totally did enjoy this album. So, and yeah, did enjoy this album for what it is. I'm not gonna say, I can't say best of the year. Well, it really depends on 2021 goes, really, because given some of the albums that are supposed to come out, and given Weezer might be 2 for 2 this year, even though technically it would have just been 1 from last year, some bands managed to make Quarantine work in their favor, and it seems Weezer's one that did. There are other bands that have. Someone's looking like a better... It's tough to say. There's some newer bands I need to check out, apparently, that I'm hearing good on. They'll eventually come up, but between this Architects review here and some catch-up thing I'm going to do afterwards instead of putting them all separately, that's what I'm going to wind up doing. But overall, I say thumbs up. I'll say thumbs up. A little bit, maybe a little this, but I'm not gonna say it. It doesn't rock that hard to the point of masterclass. Even though there are songs on here that have those moments, like your Dead Butterflies, more so when Dead Butterflies and Black Ones and Discourse is Dead. There are softer moments that did sort of make me feel Thricey in places. One of those being more in Flight Without Feathers. At least the way they choose to write it. Demigod had this weird auto-tune thing, but I think they were going for this robotic thing with this demigod character or something. But yeah, I feel like they do kind of leave this album a little bit of a whimper. But even though Dying is Absolutely Safe isn't a terrible way to end this compared to what we were getting post-Goliath. But yeah, for the most part, with the exceptions of Animals and the guest feature tracks of Little Wonder and Goliath, some moments of Demigod, and so the way they try to do Dying is Absolutely Safe. I'm okay with this record. I don't hate not listening to it. I think it's decent enough. I think people who are into this particular thing, I did get more out of, say, in a weird way, I did get slightly more somehow out of Defy or Mice of Men, but yeah. And definitely a little more, speaking of Winston McCall. I don't know why I said Robert McCall. I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember the band, but I know I got a subscriber that's fellow random rocker out there who wants to, I forgot to do my intro. I forget it. Yeah, I did enjoy this record I did enjoy what this record was. Up to a point, but it's not a wow for me, you know? It just does what it needs to do. And as your basic in metalcore, and maybe other bands that are still kind of within the ilk of what's going on that are in the more progressive metalcore style, that are hopefully still progressive in, or at least somewhat more progressive metal lenient in that form of progressive metalcore. Like, maybe Era might still be able to pull it. I've yet to hear the tracks, though. But we'll see what happens with that. But it seems they've went more traditional. Hopefully they don't go too far and lose themselves completely, because there is a slight moments like Meteor where they kind of aren't exactly themselves and they just kind of seem like they come off like they're trend chasing. But I don't believe that they truly fully are, because there are other moments where they do feel like it's themselves and they're trying to branch out, it seems. But even though they're branching out, isn't as innovative as it should be. But it's not like the songs aren't there. There's not something good there, like as I said, with Dead Butterflies. And even Animals has its moments, but it's really more in tracks like your Black Ones and your Dead Butterflies, and that really showcase the better aspects. And other moments can come off filler to some people who aren't interested in metalcore. I don't expect people who find most of what is metalcore nowadays generic. This ain't gonna do anything for you in that regard. But if you are a fan of what's been going on, I guess this will do it for you. I can't say I fully am. I liked something more out of things, and they have their moments where they at least cater to what people loved about Architects, but what people are kind of liking about what is currently of the more rock-oriented, of the more melodic metalcore bands, more post-hardcore, hard rock lenient, hard rock alt metal lenient, melodic metalcore bands, as opposed to those that are way more lenient towards what is in that vein of what has become of the, or at least even the more beat, to the point of some elements of beat boop, which they do here way more compared to previous ones. Though I will say the cleans are the best. Sam Carter's cleans are a highlight in this record. Even the moments that are like almost current Thrice or it meets old school Thrice. Yeah, I just like these records. Like I said. But what did you guys think of the new Architects for those that wish to exist? Leave a comment below. Let me know. As always, guys, keep it random. Keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you all in the next video, whatever that entails. Take care, y'all.